All right, we're moving on to the Sun Belt. Kelly, I'm going to tell you what, we got two Sun Belt games in a row for the people here. We have Coastal Carolina on the road at Georgia Southern. The Eagles are 6.5-point home favorites, and this game carries an over-under of 64 points. They're expecting a good old-fashioned shootout here as well. This game kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network. They've been, I think they've had one almost every week, which has just been great. So this is your NFL Network game of the week. Jalen White, the running back for Georgia Southern, missed last week with an ankle injury. He's a dynamic player. He forced 10 missed tackles, against UAB alone. He's shifty. He's really good. I'm not sure if he's going to be back or not. That's definitely worth keeping an eye on. If you're looking at Coastal, they have a slight rest advantage after playing on Thursday at home last week. Georgia Southern played on Saturday on the road. And the Chanticleers, Tim Beck, I've been mean to him, but I'm going to continue to be. Just an absolute clinic and coaching malpractice last week. That was a very winnable game that Beck sunk this team. I was thrilled because I had a Georgia State ticket. It was awesome watching, all those gaffes and just inconsistency. I don't have enough time on this podcast to dive too far into that. But now they go up against a Georgia Southern team that has a really good defense. I think a better defense than we saw with Georgia State. They held Wisconsin to 7 first-half points, and even at one point, according to ESPN at least, hit a 55% win expectancy in that game when they went up 14-7. Then they gave up, a short field on interception, turned it over twice to Wisconsin, including at the 11. So that final score, that 35-14 final score, is a bit misleading. Georgia Southern was very live in that game. Then they come out and just beat the tar out of Ball State 40-3 last week. You know what? I'm just going to put my play right out here. I'm fading Coastal again. I bet Georgia Southern in this game. Anything under 7, I think is absolutely play for me. The Eagles are number 1 in rushing success rate. I don't know if that's so much a product of who they've played a little bit here, but Coastal Carolina cannot defend the rush. They're 106th in EPA per rush allowed on the season. And then a quarterback, Davis Brin, he's been really good. He was from Tulsa. He's a transfer in. Didn't play a lot last year, but he's been phenomenal this year. He threw for 344 yards and 4 touchdowns in a dominant win over Ball State, like I had mentioned. When you look at his numbers, though, for season long, just keep in mind, I'm going to say this quietly, threw 5 interceptions against Wisconsin, but there's only been 2 in the other games that they have not been completely outmatched in. And Coastal, they give up plenty of work through the air, too. Defense is just atrocious, and the offense isn't good enough to keep up with that. In the past years, I think Coastal could get away with that kind of porous defense thanks to their innovative offense, but under Beck, that's completely out the window. They're predictable, no creativity, seemingly random go-for decisions. Sometimes they punt it in plus territory. Sometimes it's kind of like watching Brandon Staley in the NFL. You have no idea what he's going to do, and it's almost never the right decision. And he's just completely nerfed Grayson McCall. So, yeah, I'm going to be brutal about the Chanticleers, but that's how I see them right now. They're a team that I will absolutely fade as long as you're giving me these short lines.
I have Georgia Southern minus 2.5.
No.
It's a 50. Yeah, I know. It's a 57% win expectancy. As you were going, I was like, Brett's not going to like this.
Well, we did this last week too, though.
We did. You're right. We did. 57% win expectancy. Coming off their 40-3 win at Ball State, as you mentioned, no team was upgraded more in my power ratings than Georgia Southern. They improved 5 points this week. On the season, the Eagles are up 6.5 points and more than 30 spots in the rankings. Both units have been better than expected. The offense is now top 40, and the defense is cracking the top 100. That's good for a defense that I projected coming in number 128. So they're not a good defense, but it's much better than I was projecting, which is what's given this team the opportunity to rise in the power ratings. By my numbers, this is the best team in the Sun Belt East, and they have the second best chance to win the division behind only App State. While Georgia Southern finds themselves at the top of my weekly upgrade list, Coastal Carolina, Brett, you will like this, is in the top 10 of my weekly downgrades list, following that shock double-digit loss at home to Georgia State last week. I say shock, you say maybe not. The numbers did not expect it, and they also didn't expect them to lose by 2 scores. So Coastal's offense has been slightly worse than I projected. You say nerf Grayson McCall. I get it. They've fallen from the mid-40s to now the mid-50s. The defense has picked up the slack, though, and by my numbers, they've improved 30 spots since the preseason. They now rank in the mid-60s. Again, I had this defense around 100 coming into the year, so not a high bar to clear, but they have been better on that side of the ball, even though the offense has been a bit more deficient than we've seen in years past. The Chants are the second best team in the East by my numbers currently. However, they're 0-1 in conference play now, and they have a relatively difficult conference slate in front of them, so my numbers give them just the 5th best chances to win the division. So these are the 2 best teams in the division. Neither one of them has the best chance to win the division for some of those reasons that I've just outlined. But bottom line, I have Georgia Southern minus 2.5, 43% chance that Coastal Carolina gets the upset win on the road and propels them into their off week on a high note. I talked about this division race. It is so tight in in the Sun Belt. It's beyond ridiculous, and it's really in both divisions, but the East in particular, the one we're talking about here, App State's my favorite, and I'm using that in air quotes, to win the division with a 26% chance. Like a 1 in 4 chance. That's the best chance anyone has. It is so tight between App State, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Marshall. Throw Coastal in there. It doesn't help that James Madison, who is a really good team in their own right and belongs in this conversation, is not eligible for the conference championship game. So that's why you're seeing this spread out. But if you put James Madison in there, it'd be even more. So anyway, with a win here, Georgia Southern actually jumps up above App State for the time being with a 32% chance to make it. A loss, though, drops them all the way down to 11%. That's fifth best. For Coastal Carolina, I said right now they're fifth with 12% chance. A win puts them right back in the mix, and they'd be up to a 22% chance, which would be second best. A loss, now you're 0-2. And while you are presumably one of the better teams in the power ratings, depending on how you lose this game, maybe you're not anymore, you'd only have a 4% chance because you're really behind the 8 ball now. So Coastal can't afford another loss here. Georgia Southern could use it to really propel them forward. Both these teams have to go on the road to App State, the team that I'm currently projecting as the favorite, but not the best team. So this whole race is just so interwoven. I'm very excited for it, and this game at the end of the year could prove to be pivotal for either one of these teams and their chances to make and or host the conference championship game.